Hello and welcome to part 2 of Bye Bye Windows, Hello Linux. In the first video we looked at backing up and how to back up your Windows data and all the data you need to look at and to keep. You must, if you haven't already done it, you must actually look at that video and make sure that you've backed everything up, because in this video we are going to completely wipe your main drive. And any data that's on it will go, it will be gone. So if you don't have a backup, or if you've backed it up to the main drive, you're going to lose it. So let's have a look at what you need to do. First of all, we need to download Linux, and I would recommend Linux Mint. This one is about Linux Mint. We'll do others on different distributions known as distros of Linux, but this one is about Linux Mint. The URL, the address is linuxmint.com, and this is the main page. Click on download, then scroll down a little bit. If you have 4 GB of memory, of RAM, or more, then you want the 64-bit. If you have less than 4 GB of memory, then you want the Mate or the XFCE version. Most computers these days will have 4 GB of memory, so take the 64-bit Cinnamon version. Click on that and then select a mirror. Now I've already downloaded this, but what you need to do is just select a mirror close to you. So for example, if you're in the USA and you're close to Clarkson University, well, that's the one you're going to do. Or if you're next to Washington University, if you're in the UK, then you've got a number of UK ones. If you're in other countries, for example Bangladesh or in India or anywhere like that, in fact in Brazil, then just select the mirror that's closest to you. Okay. When you click on that, the download will start. And as I say, I've already downloaded it, but once it's been downloaded, you need to create a USB bootable drive. Now, on Amazon, here is a suitable USB drive. It's very cheap. In fact, I'll put a link in the description in the notes below, and if you click on it, and even though you're not in the UK, it will take you to a suitable, it'll give you the option of going to Amazon in your part of the country or your part of the world, and you'll be able to download that. So the link will be in below. Once you've downloaded it, you need, and you've got your USB drive, you need to create a bootable ISO, and I recommend Balenia Etcher. So balenia.io/etcher. Again, these links will be in the notes below. Just download this, put it on your desktop, and when insert your USB drive into the USB and click on start, select image, and away Balenia will go. It's very good, it's very easy to use. As you can see, it says download for Linux, but you can download for Windows or Mac or whichever. Okay, so if you're on Windows, it should automatically come up Etcher for Windows. Right, okay, so we've downloaded Linux Mint, we've downloaded Balenia Etcher, we've got a USB drive, and we've installed the ISO on the USB drive. You now need to reboot your computer and boot it from the USB drive. Now to do that, as the computer reboots, it depends on your system, but it's either the escape key, the F2 key, the F10 key, or the control key. Now you'll have to look it up for your particular computer, but it's usually one of those keys that will bring up a menu which will allow you to boot from different drives. You will then be able to select the USB key, it should be listed as one of those. Use the up and down arrow keys to get to that, and then boot from that. So I actually did a video of my screen using a camera, but unfortunately it hasn't come out very well. I'll put some footage of it a bit later on, but it didn't come out very well at all. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a virtual machine to actually show you how to install this. Now, I have 2 drives in my machine, in my computer, so I'm going to show you how to do it on 2 drives. If you've got a single drive, I'll also show you how to do it on a single drive. Right, so let's get started. Okay, this one is an F12, so it says Start Linux Mint, so we will press Enter to start Linux Mint. It will take a moment or two while it looks at the system and decides what drivers it needs and this type of thing. And we should then get the basic Linux Mint screen. Don't worry if it seems to take a long time. It's just finding all the drivers and that type of thing. Now, I know this looks a bit strange. It's simply because I'm actually on a virtual machine and it's using a default screen size. I could change it, but it's not really necessary. To change it, you would click on Menu, you'd click on Options here, and you come down to Display, and then you can change the display size, and that will probably be the best size for me, 1280 by 960 on this particular monitor. I am actually using 2 different monitors. So keep this configuration and OK, and you can see it's more or less correct for this monitor. Right, now to install Linux Mint, it's very easy. You have a CD-ROM image here, double click on it. It's a good idea to make sure that your network is working. If it's not working, then put in your network details, find your Wi-Fi and make sure that it's working, because Linux Mint will download certain files that it needs from the internet. Select your language. There are a number of languages to select from, as you can see, and I'm English, so we'll click on English and then on Continue. It will install the language pack. Now, because I'm English UK, I'll select English UK, but again, you can select your keyboard. If you need to test which keyboard, you can actually put in some special characters like the pound, and let's have a look, and it will then detect my keyboard layout, so it'll ask you to put in various different ones. I know that mine's the English UK, the standard English UK. I don't need any of the others, so I shall just continue. Now, this is very important. You need to install your third-party graphics drivers and your Wi-Fi hardware and all this type of thing. So make sure that there's a tick in this box, and this is why you need the network, because it's going to download this from the internet as part of the installation. So make sure this box is ticked. Continue. It'll take a moment now while it looks at which drivers it needs and what it needs to download, and possibly even download them while we speak. Okay, now at this point it depends on how many disks you have in your machine and how they're set up. Now, if you have Windows already installed, there will be another option which will be to dual boot. If you've only got one disk, you want to click on Erase Disk and install Linux Mint. That's if you've only got one single disk. This is the one you want. You don't want the dual boot. You don't want something else. You can, if you wish, use the LVM. I'm not going to discuss that now, but it just makes life a bit easier if you add more disks later on, or more disk space later on. So if you've got just one single disk, all you do is click on Erase Disk and install Linux Mint. We're going to do it because we have 2 disks, so I've clicked on something else and on Continue. Now, it's found the disks, and you can see that there are 2 disks, and it actually has a partition table for these. Now if the partition table wasn't here, then we would have to create a new partition table. New partition table and then click OK, and then the next device, new partition table, and continue, and you have your partition table set up. You now need to tell, this is if you've got more than one disk. If you've got just one disk, you don't have to do this. This is all done for you, but because we're actually specifying what's what, then we have to tell the system what's happening. Now first of all, you want to put your bootloader on your first disk, this disk, okay, which will usually be, if you've got two disks, an SSD disk. If it just so happens that this is your SSD disk, then you will change this to SDB, the second disk. Okay, but we're actually using SDA as our boot disk, so we'll click on free space and click on plus. Okay, we're going to use all of the free space. We need ext4 journaling file system. Use that. Okay, you do have a number of other options. You don't want them. You only want the ext4. And now you need to specify that this is going to be for the operating system, and the sign in Linux for the operating system, which is called root, and the very base is just the /. So click on OK, and you'll see that it will actually come in here with ext4 and the mount point as root. Now we need to come down to this free space, and what we're going to do is we're going to partition this into a number of different logical drives. So first of all, we need to partition it, and I'm going to set this up for some temporary space, and I'm going to make it about 5 gig in size. You can be bigger, it can be smaller. It very much depends on how much disk space you've got available. But this is for the temporary folder, and Linux actually empties it at the end of when you close down Linux every time. So it's up to you how big you want to do it. I'm going to set this at about 5 gig. So 5,000. Okay, so that's about 5 gig. Now, on a normal system where you've got quite a large, say you've got a 2 terabyte drive or 1 terabyte drive, you can set this to about 20 gig if you so wish. Okay, so we're going to put this and we're going to mount it in temp. So TMP is temp, so we'll put that in. Now it could be a logical one which would allow us to increase the space, so click on OK, and you can see that it's listed here. Click on free space again because we want to create another drive, and this time we want about 10 gig, and this is going to be, because I'm going to be using this as a drive to create HTML and web development, I'm going to make this is about 10. Actually, no, we'll make it 16. Okay, and again ext4, and this time we're going to use the mount point as /var, because this is where Apache will put its HTML documents. I could put it somewhere else, I could change Apache, but I'm going to put it in var for now. So click on OK, and we'll put it in, hopefully. Yep, and finally we'll click on plus, and this time we'll just make it a primary partition, and this is going to be your home directory. So this is where all your data is going to be stored. This is where you're going to have your documents, your videos, this type of thing. So it's always stored in /home, and then it will have a / with your name, but we'll just have home, and click on OK, and it's going to create the partition. It's a bit bigger. So as you can see, we've got our partitions. We've used all the disk space up, so you can see here all the disk space is used. It's got different colors to tell you the different types, and it's given it a different name to each partition. Okay, and you can see the different sizes here. So each partition has a different name. We're happy with all of that. We've checked that it's all correct, and when we click install now, then we will get write changes to disk. Now if you've only got a single disk and you're using just the single disk system, the automatic system, you will get at this screen, but it'll only have just the one disk. It'll only have the one disk on it. That's all it'll have. It won't have the rest of this, but you will see this. So you click on continue, and it will now create those partitions. Okay, you now need to tell the system where you are. So London is good for me. If you're somewhere else, for example, if you're in Australia, you can click on Australia. If you're in India, you can click on India. Brazil, for example, Brazil. Alaska, for example, Alaska. But we're in London, so we'll have London and click continue. You can of course type your name. Now here you need to give your name. So my name is John, and I'm going to give, actually put that in there, and I'm going to change the computer's name because I have a number of different virtual machines. Okay, so this is going to be called so it reminds me which machine I'm on. And you also notice that it said you couldn't start or end with a hyphen, but you can put the hyphens, that's this dash here, in the middle. Now you need a password that's going to be easy to remember, easy to type, okay, because you're going to be using it quite a lot in Linux, and unlike Windows, you actually use the password a lot in Linux. So it should be at least 8 characters. It should be easy to remember and easy to type. So you can log in automatically if it's only your computer, then you can set that. But if somebody steals your computer, then they can log in. I would require your password to log in. I wouldn't encrypt your home folder. You can if you wish, but if there's only you using the computer and it only your information, and it's not, you know, government sensitive stuff, then don't do that. So click continue, and we will start copying files. Now this is probably going to take about 20 minutes on this machine because it's a virtual machine, but so we'll actually run through this very quickly, and I'll let it I'll speed up the video considerably while this is running, and I'll come back to you when it's finished. Okay, that took about 15 minutes. It depends on your computer as to how long it will take. If you're running SSDs, it'll probably take about 10 minutes, and if you have a slower computer, it could take anything up to about half an hour, 45 minutes. It very much depends on your computer. Okay, you're now given the option to either continue testing or to restart. You want to click on Restart Now, and you will be prompted to remove your USB drive in a moment. Don't do it just yet until you are prompted to do so. Okay, so you need to remove your USB drive, and once you've removed it, press enter. Nothing might happen for a few minutes after you've pressed, well, a few moments, not a few minutes after you've pressed enter. Don't worry about it, it's just finalizing one or two things. And now it'll reboot. You can ignore most of the messages. You're waiting for the login screen to come up, So any messages that you might receive, like login here and so on, we're waiting for the graphical login screen. At the moment it's just setting everything up for first run. It takes a moment or two to do this, and here we have the graphical login screen. So now we can actually come in. You can see the name of the computer is shown above. So I hope you've remembered your password, and it's easy to type because you do need it quite a lot with Linux. It's one of the safety features that Linux has that Windows does not, in that if you need to do anything that might put files into places where they could be dangerous, then you have to give your password. So if it suddenly pops up with put in your password, you probably know that there's somebody's trying to attack your system with a virus or whatever, especially if you're not doing anything. Okay, now don't worry about check your video drivers. We can close this for now. And what will happen is you'll get the welcome screen. Now, as you can see, mine has come up with the small size screen, so I shall resize by bringing up the display. I'll just close that for now. And again, I can see that the drive lights are running. You can see down here right at the very bottom. So we'll come down to display, double click on it, and we'll select the 1280 by 960, which should be the correct one, and click apply. Not quite right, but what we can now do, yes, we've clicked apply. If we click on keep this configuration, view, just Windows size. I don't know why it does that, but it suddenly jumped to my other screen. So that's fine, and as you can see, we're now showing the complete window. Okay, that's it for this video. In the next video, we will look at configuring Linux Mint, making it a little bit more secure, and at some of the software that we have available on the system for you, and how to actually install Linux software. If you've enjoyed this video, if you found it helpful, please like, share and subscribe. Subscriptions do help the channel by bringing in a little bit of extra money to us, and although it doesn't cost you anything, it's just more revenue from the advertisers, and so that does actually help us to keep the channel going. Thank you very much indeed for watching, and we'll see you next time.